So if you are drinking something, let me know what you're drinking in the chat box. Let's make this a little fun because I know we got a few more hours to go with podcast day. But so the agenda for today, I'm going to talk about me and my podcast journey. And as Dave mentioned, I've invited some podcasters to share their journey and how we got started, how we met, and we're going to rock this. So just a little bit about me. I'm an entrepreneur, and, it's totally unrelated to podcasting. I've been an IT consultant on my own for the last 6 years. And I realized I'm going through this whole midlife crisis thing. And you're probably looking at me saying, what? You don't even look like 25, but you're wrong. So I was a travel blogger. I used to blog for Travel and Leisure Asia. And I really have this obsession with Southeast Asia. That's my thing. So enjoyed that, but I figured, I have to reinvent myself. And how am I going to do that? And I remember this. This was my first introduction to podcasts through my iPod. And the first podcast, and I wish I powered it up to see my playlist, but I didn't because I forgot I even had one. But I used to listen to Grammar Girl. And not because I'm bad at grammar, but just kind of to re-educate myself and refresh my memory on certain things. And then it evolved. I used to listen to NPR. I still do. And Snap Judgment was another favorite of mine. But I never thought, hey, that could be me too. So I went into the YouTube space. And that's a lot of work. Like if you've ever done video, and I really enjoy doing video, but sometimes I would go out to college campuses and I would just ask women in the streets random questions. So it was like filming, editing, creating the script. It's a lot of work. And I was doing it alongside with podcasting when I first started. And I thought, have I lost my mind? I got to pick one poison here, and it's going to be podcasting. So the name of my podcast is the Keep It 100 Girl Podcast. And my passion and purpose is to help you women and men celebrate embarrassment in your lives. So I get people to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, even if it's totally embarrassing or super cray-cray. And it could be anything as far as love, sex, relationships, sexual health, and body image. It's all those things, but mostly it revolves around relationships. And it's funny, now that I think about it and reinventing my second career, I've kind of been dubbed this relationship expert, without the credentials. And I think oftentimes people just bum rush me for relationship advice, which is fine. I enjoy it, but it's kind of unexpected because I never thought I would ever be in that type of space. But I really help people keep it 100 in their lives. And what that means, if you're not familiar with the term, is I keep it real and true, right? I talk to you like I talk to my own girlfriends, no filters, no judgment, and I keep it real. I keep the conversation real. It's a form of tough love, but I feel like we all make mistakes. We all make embarrassing mistakes, so why not share them so we all could learn from them? So I go through a gamut of interviewing people on different topics and that are embarrassing, and they reveal their vulnerabilities. And a lot of times, they think I'm this therapist, which I'm not. I'm not trained in that area at all, but I'm a good listener. And I think that's how I make people comfortable and how I bring down the wall. So they just kind of reveal their personal, a lot of their personal. So I make it fun. And right now I'm on iHeartRadio. I'm on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, and TuneIn Radio. So I'm on the satellite as well as just mainstream channels. So what else about me? When I started, I didn't know how to get started. So I attended Podcast Movement. And so the people that you're going to meet are people that I met either through social media or Podcast Movement. And so I soaked up everything. This was July 2014. I soaked up everything. I attended all the workshops. I talked to whoever I could talk to. And I launched in January this year. Yeah. Was it? Maybe it was 2015. Sorry. Because in 6 months, I decided I was going to ramp up. And my first line of sight was like, okay, this space is new to me. What do I outsource? And I think that's important for every podcaster that's new and thinking about launching a podcast, is deciding what you don't like doing, what you're not going to have time for. And for me, it's the whole editing process. And then producing process. I want nothing to do with it. I don't have time for that. I want to devote my time to creating content, doing my interviews. So I sought a producer, which I still use to this day. And so when I first started, it's all about, perfection. And I would record one episode like 4 or 5 times. And then I realized, this is a time waster. I need to just record, listen to the draft, and then make the edits and done. And my shows, if you've listened to it or not, are very, they're layered heavily. They're layered with sound effects. They're layered with music from top to bottom. And there's a reason for this. It's because on my podcast, I emote a mood. So whether if the topic is sensitive, whether I'm building up suspense, whether I am driving a point, you're going to feel the mood throughout my podcast. And, in case, let's say, example, my 9/11 story had a lot of sound effects because I ran through my near death, I call it, experience. So from end to end, you're going to hear all different kinds of tones through that episode. Perhaps through an episode like when I did this week, this woman had a hard upbringing. She was physically abused by her parents. Her parents were involved in drugs and alcohol. She had a teen pregnancy. She committed suicide. She attempted suicide 3 times. So, I had to really be strategic with the music that I select. And it's not so much even the mood. So I'm old school. I write out my scripts. And there's a reason behind that, because I tell everybody this. If you're an entrepreneur, you'll understand and appreciate this. But they tell you when you're starting a business, you start with an exit plan. And it's the same with podcasting. You got to think of what your exit plan is, or what the bigger picture is. That's part of the whole goal setting, whether it's short or long term. And for me, I started out writing a book. I didn't finish it, but I knew the book was closely related to my podcast. So that being said, the reason for writing my scripts is because I'm curating that content to add to the book. And it's not just one book. I'm going to make several. And so that's just something to keep in mind. How can you repurpose your content? And whether it's free bonuses, those are the things that I wish someone had just put in my brain in the beginning, only because in the beginning you're excited, you're overwhelmed, and you just want to push out content. And you don't think exit strategy. You don't think big picture. So I encourage anybody who's starting to do that from the beginning. As far as tools that I use, I'm an Evernote junkie. So between sharing notes and scripts and time codes with my producer, I use that plus Dropbox. Dropbox has a feature called Paper that I absolutely adore, because you get immediate notifications when there's a comment or a question, just like, Google Docs. But Google Docs to me is too busy on my eyes. So I prefer Paper. So check that out. I do all my recording with this. This is my baby right here. And if you listen to my podcast, and what really hit home and resonated when I first started is everybody said, Nina, you sound so clear. Your audio quality is top notch because of this bad boy. This is a Shure mic. And what I love about this is I carry it with me everywhere I go in case I need to ask people random questions. And it goes right into my iPhone. And they have an app, and I just make you adjust the settings when you first get it. And voila, it syncs with my Dropbox. What else? And that's pretty much it. This is a Shure mic. It cost me $150. And I got it from Podcast Movement 2 years ago. They usually have a booth. Some other tools that I use, in addition to the Shure mic, is just as a backup. You always want to have a backup because something will always go wrong. So Audacity I have running in the background, and I also have a Uber Conference. I love this tool. This is in case you want to do a conference call with 2 or more people. It automatically records the call and downloads the MP3 file to your computer. And the sound quality is crisp. So if you're on a budget, it costs nothing. And everybody could fit nothing in their budget, right? So I would look into that. They also have an international plan. I'm not sure how much that is, but in case you do a lot of calls internationally, it might be something to consider. So that's my main tools, or my top tools. But as far as my segments, I just want to mention that I'm a little on the edgy side. So you're going to find some of my podcasts are revealing in the sense where I try to tap into people's brain, what they're thinking, but not saying out loud. So again, I come back to the vulnerability side, and a lot of times you're going to hear or maybe even relate to some of those stories because we've all been there. And that's the beauty of it. We've all been in these situations, whether you're a man or woman, which brings me to my next point. You know, it's important as a podcaster to reinvent yourself, right? You don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over. And for me, I try to do this every 3 to 6 months, right? I try to think of new ways to present my content. Right now, I started out with 1 show a week. So I drop 1 show every Tuesday. And then I decided back in May that I was going to add 2 other shows. So the show that I've added is only a 15-minute segment, and it's called Morning Sip. And then every other week, I produce a Friday morning segment that's only like 5-10 minutes. And it's a Keep It 100 moment, which is more me keeping it 100 with one of my own moments. And we all have moments. We all have those, you know, what was I thinking moments. And so those are the type of things that I would share on a Friday episode. So again, you're thinking about your exit plan, you're thinking about big picture, you're thinking about reinventing your show and keeping your listeners interested, right? Your existing listeners, and attracting other listeners by being reinventing yourself. So my inspiration for that is really just listening to other podcasts, perhaps. And not to say that I'm using their idea, but it might spawn my own creative juices to do something similar but different, or present it differently. And I got to think of my audience too. When I started out, my target audience initially was 18 to 35, but I realized, you know what? It really isn't. It's all ages, because it's mothers listening, it's fathers listening, and it's men listening, which really, really shocked me because men want to know what women are thinking. And I've had a lot of guy friends of mine say, you know, you should really have some more content that men could relate to. So again, that's part of my reinventing myself. How am I going to attract more men? I'm thinking of you guys. What else? So I think I never really would have thought that I always wished that I went into broadcasting when I was in college. And I'm kind of happy I fell into this podcasting because I feel like I'm living that dream that never happened, in a broadcasting kind of way. Right now, my podcast has a reach of over 70 countries. Again, I've been in this game for 9 months now, going on 10 tomorrow. And I'm really happy with the progress that I've made to date. As far as like social media wise, I post a lot. Sometimes I think probably too much, but there's never something wrong as too much. And if you look at my posts, there's I put a lot of thought into it. So there's short, long posts, a mix of images. And on Twitter, I could post in a day like 7 to 10 times a day. So that's Monday to Friday. So you're looking at 70 to 100 posts a week. And that's a lot, but I enjoy it. That's the thing. When you enjoy something like that, then it's effortless. And, people relate to your messages. More tweets, yes. What else do I have to tell you guys? Looking at some notes here, tips. Does anyone have any questions so far? So the reason I've invited my guests is because, as you may or may not know, women only make up, and this is anecdotally, but women make up 30% of the podcasting community, okay? And the minority representation is a little lower. So that's why I brought on these guests to kind of share their experiences. Hey, Alyssa, you can join in anytime. That's why I brought these folks on board, because I thought it would be helpful for everyone to hear what their experiences are as either a woman or a woman and a minority. Cheers to that. And go women. Yay, Alyssa's going to be joining. So she's great. So the people that I also invited have either listened to my show, have been guests, and they've introduced me to podcasting when I was a virgin to all of it. So I'm really glad that they're here. And firstly, we have both Alyssa and Shamika. Yay! Yay! Right on time, guys. Awesome. Because I came to the end of my spiel. So I'm waiting for Shamika to join. It just says waiting. And Vernon also is in the wing. So Alyssa, first of all, you've been on my podcast.
I have.
And you've listened to my podcast.
I have.
So,
and because of our interesting interview, I've gotten to be on several of your podcasts, which is so fun.
Yes. And so can you tell people, I've explained to them kind of my edgy side, but explain to them your takeaway from my podcast as a mother, as a parent, as a daughter.
Yeah. So I hope we're not getting any feedback. I can't figure out how to put this on on my headphones. So it's on my external speakers. Anyway.
Yeah, you're good.
But your podcast is all about having taboo conversations. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it because I grew up in a really conservative home. And nothing got talked about. And because I was a very curious person and, didn't like rules for the sake of having rules, I kind of found my own way and made a lot of mistakes. And so that's something that I have vowed to not do with my own children. We still have family values and all those other things, but your podcast opens up all of those conversations for women who kind of grew up in the same sort of conservative or non-communicative homes like you and I did, where, stuff just kind of like, well, that's uncomfortable, so I'm not going to talk about that. And
right.
I've shared with you, I don't think it's made it onto any of the podcasts yet, but I have actually listened to certain podcast episodes of yours with my 10-year-old daughter, because it opens up conversations about stuff from women's issues and, maturing and puberty and all of those other things to even some sex stuff. And we don't obviously talk about a lot of that stuff. She's only 10, but
yeah,
it starts to open up that conversation to make it okay. Right. And I think it's just healthier to talk about stuff than to not. I guess that theory has to be in the world of podcasting. We love to talk.
Yeah, we love to. And drink. Cheers to that.
And drink. Yes, vodka for me.
So, tell us about your podcast journey. We've been talking about, I guess I've listened to other events yesterday and today, and everybody talks about their journey. So, why don't you share with everybody your journey and then emphasize as a woman
Yeah.
what that journey means to you as well?
So I'm actually going to start with my place or my journey as a woman first, because when I decided I wanted to be a podcaster, first of all, when I decided I wanted to be a podcaster, I decided I want to do it with excellence, not just flip on some random mic that I found off of Craigslist and, start yapping. Right. So,
Right.
but you look around and there's not that many women to, emulate or model after that have hit it like big, right? And so I love the men that I have had a chance to create relationships with and learn from, the John Lee Dumases, Pat Flynn's, Mike Kim, Jeff Brown, like all these amazing men who do their craft really, really well.
Right.
And, I kind of wonder, where are all the women? And you have your Amy Porterfields, of course, and you've got some other women that are there. But it's, thanks for that little plug there. Thanks for putting my website on. That's super nice. But yeah, there's not a lot of women to look up to, I guess. So, when I decided I wanted to start a podcast, that was back in January only. And I kind of went big or went home. And so I flew out to California, learned from John Lee Dumas and Michael O'Neill themselves in an all day long workshop, which was like, blow your mind, amazing. Hired Jeff Brown from the Read to Lead podcast as a one-on-one podcast coach to, yes, beautiful San Diego. That's right. To learn it, because it's a completely new craft for me. And I love to talk, but talking into a microphone,
it's different.
It's a whole different thing. Yeah. And so fortunately, I had enough really good advice about not staring at the numbers to worry about that. And iTunes new and noteworthy was frozen the entire time that I could have taken advantage of that, which was fine also. But so I learned very quickly to appreciate each download as another person I actually got to talk to. And that those numbers weren't just numbers. They were real people. And so that's been a really fun part of my journey. And learning all of the work. It's been so much work. And I chose
work, isn't it?
Yeah. I chose to launch as a twice a week podcast. And that was a little bit insane. And I didn't realize how much work it was going to be when I launched it. But it's just
try daily. So that will kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a series that I'm going to be finishing throughout the end of the year. And then on January 1st, I'm actually going to cut down to once a week so that I can put all of my energy and effort into that once a week podcast. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, but I can't tell you how many nights that I've put the kids to bed. I mean, this is part of like work comes in as a mom, put the kids to bed and they've needed mom to snuggle or rub their backs or whatever. And like the room is dark and I'm laying down rubbing their backs. And all of a sudden I fall asleep, wake up at 2 a.m., do work on my podcast from 2 to 5, go back to bed for a couple hours and get back up.
Yeah.
Like that's not uncommon.
It's not. I do it all the time. In fact, I have to write an episode tonight.
Yeah.
Which I'm late for.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of been my journey, but and it's a short journey. My podcast only launched in May. But we're 44 episodes in now. And
wow.
Yeah. And so it's been a really awesome journey, although hard at times, but anything great has challenges along the way.
So it looks like we only have room for one guest right now. So let's
let somebody else pop on.
Well, you can stay on for a little bit. Okay, so let's add Vernon. Hey Dave, if you can just add Dave. Okay, Vernon, because the limitation is I can only have 3 people on at a time.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. So you're a newbie, which is cool. Vernon's been in the game for a while.
Hey,
Vernon, you've been podcasting, I want to say for at least 5 years, right? Or close,
Going
or
on,
more
yeah,
than that?
going on that.
Yeah, I thought so. So I thought it would be really good for you to share your podcast journey because you've been in the game long and Mary's been in the game long. And I thought it'd be interesting to hear from you guys on your journey from 5 years ago till now and the differences to share with myself and Alyssa, who are newbies.
For I am trying to switch to my better camera and it is not working.
You look handsome regardless.
Yes, and it's his birthday.
And it's
Everybody
his birthday.
Happy birthday! Cheers!
Got my podcast shirt on.
Oh, very nice.
I have mine. Oh, mine's upstairs.
Mine's in the laundry.
Got a happy birthday wish from Shamika over there in the comments.
Oh yeah. So Vernon, share your story. So we have the world listening, guys.
No, not the world.
We.
How's my audio? Are you guys getting feedback?
No.
Okay, good. So I don't know. Is that the microphone you're hearing?
Yes.
Okay, good. As long as the audio is good, I don't care. So, I'm a podcaster.
Look at that iPod. When you were launching.
Oh my God.
Yes. I wish I'd powered it up, but.
Oh, well, let's see then.
This is what I used to listen to, Alyssa. Like my exposure to podcasts back in the day.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
That is.
I'm going to keep this. This is going to be worth something.
That's right.
That's a Zune.
What?
A Microsoft Zune.
Oh, yuck.
First generation. I mean, look at how big this thing is compared to an iPhone.
I've never seen that.
Oh yeah, this is history. You can't really see it because the light's horrible right there. But
all right, you almost got a Zune too. Okay. All right, back to the regularly scheduled program.
Right. Don't let me distract you. I will.
Okay, journey. We want to hear it.
Oh well. So
how'd you get started?
I got started. Well, I did this really horrible podcast. It was bad too. Back, what was the name of the company? I can't remember the name of the company, but it was something like TalkShoe. That was the name of it. It was a company called TalkShoe, and they had a product that you could basically you record via phone line, almost like Blog Talk Radio. And I never got on Blog Talk Radio because I didn't like the idea of being scheduled on a particular time to, do whatever it was that I wanted to do. I just didn't like the schedule thing because I never had a schedule I could adhere to like that. So I ended up doing TalkShoe, and I tried to do a show on affiliate marketing, and I recorded all of about 2 episodes, and that was about it. And I'm like, okay, so that's not going to work. I kind of left it alone. And as I was doing my, my business and dealing with clients, I ended up hearing so many times, oh, well, I heard this expert say this, or I heard this expert say that. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm really tired of hearing about all these social media experts giving advice. And I'm in social media. I worked my way to it because the other story on how I got to social media is just way too long. But I'm like, okay, how do I get these people to listen to me as an expert? And I was listening to a podcast. I was actually in the gym. I was listening to Michael Stelzner, and he was having a conversation with, I believe it was Lewis House. So on a little elliptical going, and he goes, hey, I think it was 2012 or 2013 is going to be the year of the podcast. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should do that. And he goes, if you want to establish yourself as an expert, you need your own platform. I'm like, oh, okay. I just read Platform from Michael Hyatt. This makes perfect sense. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. And then 8 months later, after way too much research and all the technical stuff and learning way more than I needed to, I finally actually started the podcast and wrote out my list of, who are my top 25 guests that I want on the show. How am I going to position this to best help my clients? Because I did it as a more of a establish myself as a local expert client getting thing. It wasn't, oh, I had this love for podcasting and I just wanted to do it. But once I got behind the mic and started talking, I'm like, oh, wow, this is just like standing on stage and delivering a session or keynote. And I get just as energized from doing it. And I've gotten so much better at it than I used to be. Still working on the camera stuff because I keep looking at my webcam because I'm expecting it to be on because it's sitting on my desk. I keep doing this, but I'm getting better at video. I'm not bad at it. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the journey of how I got started, and it kind of went from there.
And question for you both, like, where do you listen to podcasts the most? Is it in your car, while you're commuting?
Pretty much all the time. So
yeah,
I mean, I listen to podcasts on probably 3 different apps. I use Overcast, which I just think is a great app. It uses very little battery power. So if I want to listen to a bunch of different podcasts, most of my podcasts are on the Overcast app, and I will listen almost always in the car. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's the Overcast app. I'll listen on the Podbean app. Sometimes I'll listen on the Spreaker app. I actually listen to Anchor quite a bit, which are just 2-minute audios, not really podcasts, but a lot of people are using it for that, for very short form podcasts.
right.
You can actually catch some pretty good shows on there with some decent talent. But I listen everywhere. I pretty much don't listen to the radio unless I'm trying to catch news. I may turn NPR on for 10 minutes tops, just to hear what's going on. And if it's not Diane Rehm or Terry Gross, I'm usually turning it off.
Right. How about you, Alyssa?
I listen to my car a lot. And I listen, I usually have a podcast on in the background if I'm just working at the computer. So then I'll listen on my desktop. And then I listen when I'm, doing things like mowing the lawn, or like I actually enjoy mowing the lawn because it gives me like 2 hours. I can
both like yard work.
Oh, I can be in my own zone, and I can binge listen on any old podcast I want, and I absolutely love it. And so, that's where I've really gotten to know Pat Flynn, honestly, is mowing my lawn. So the next time I bump into Pat Flynn, we're probably just going to talk about mowing the lawn, because that's where he and I have met before. So
that's funny.
So that's where I listen mostly. And it's usually off my phone. My car is a little bit older, so I have to plug it in to get it on the audio there, but it's through my phone, and I listen off a Podcast Addict. I prefer that over Stitcher. And I don't have an iPhone, so I'm an Android user still.
I was there. I had to leave.
I'm just about there.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm no Apple fan. I am no Apple fanboy. Actually, I like the phone because it's functional, but I loved my Android. But I couldn't get the apps that I needed.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
So then, Vernon, just like from like an ecosystem point of view, when you started, how many of us existed? I mean, were you one of the few? Oh, 5?
No, just me.
Just
you know what was funny is I did not run into very many just like minority podcasters at all. Quite honestly, Pat Flynn was about as minority as it got. And I'm like, him and women, female podcasters. So, female broadcasters. I absolutely love Terry Gross. That's one of my like dream people to meet, just because I like her interview style. But and it's not the typical NPR style. It's a little different. No, there weren't very many. So I looked around and didn't really find any. And, if I run into them, great. If I don't, great. But I think podcast movement has done a lot to change that, because there's so many people that it's opened up to now. And so I was one of the supporters that very first year that they started. And, it's so many people have found out about podcasting because of podcast movement and some of the other podcasts that get referenced as the thing of podcasting has grown to, mainstream with Serial and Joe Rogan's podcast and the Nerdist podcast. I think all of those have brought it together for people like, oh, wow, this is something that I could actually listen to because it's entertainment. It's fun. The Savage Love Cast. I think all of those shows have done a lot for bringing podcasts into the mainstream. And then when people start looking, then they start seeing the shows like, oh, Entrepreneur on Fire, or, Smart Passive Income podcast. And, oh, what is this Podcast Answers Man? And what is this, the Audacity to Podcast? Those are the shows that I first listened to. so that I could learn. I learned pretty much everything I know from Daniel Lewis over at Audacity the Podcast, and from Cliff Ravenscraft at Podcast Answer Man.
And
So,
Daniel's next. I'm going to be listening to him.
Oh, I did not know he was next.
He's next.
That's awesome.
And so, Alyssa, we're going to actually bring in, I think it's Mary.
Sounds good.
So if she's still in the queue, or Shamika, Dave, adios. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for happy hour. I'll be staying on.
All
right. Bye, guys.
Got the drink. Well, I got my empty wine glass from last night, if that counts.
I need something.
I need to go.
I got me some 40 proof right here. Yeah.
I should. Now, why don't I see my name? Can I come out, jump out, and come back in, or should I not?
Where are you going?
I was just gonna grab a drink.
Oh, well, why don't you just leave your?
I can leave.
I don't know. Shamika was having. Oh, she's in the car. Yeah, you could just walk away and come back.
Oh, awesome! I'll be right.
Thank you. All right, guys. So does anyone have any questions for us? You guys, I see like little chatters here and there, but I'm really excited to be here again. My first year of podcasting, and if I could do this for a living, I would be doing it. So if anyone out there is looking for anybody, I'm definitely interested. I'm trying to think what else. So my favorite podcast, more recently, I started listening to a minority podcaster. She's actually, what I found is a lot of entrepreneurs are coming out with podcasts. Right now, I listen to Myleik Teal, and she is the inventor of Curlbox. And Curlbox is literally like a Birchbox, where it's a subscription based model where women will get hair products on a monthly basis. And in this case, it's minority hair products for African American hair, or women of color textured hair. So she founded this company, Curlbox, and she has like 100,000 downloads a week. I mean, she is killing it. And it's a solo podcast. She's been recently, but her rule of thumb is she only interviews guests that she's met in person.
Interesting.
And she doesn't accept. Oh, cheers. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So I've been listening to her. I love Andrew Warner. He's the man, cut edge. Who else? I grew up on Snap Judgment. Who else do I love? I love Pat Flynn. I've been following him since the beginning of time, SPI.
So you mentioned Snap Judgment. Do you count that as a podcast? Are you of the school of
radio?
Is radio podcast, or is podcast radio? Am I causing controversy?
Yeah, you are. I think radio's benefiting from podcasting.
I think it is. I think radio is actually going to grow because of podcasts.
And they have an unfair advantage. I don't know how the viewers feel about it, but they're getting or stealing more of the attention away from us, who still record under a blanket, but
yep.
Yeah. What are we going to do about it?
Well, I don't know. I think radio is going to have the audience it's going to have. But I think when people listen to radio versus listening to a podcast, I believe podcasts are still more accessible for just everyday people. You feel more connected to a podcast that's not overproduced. I think there is a such thing as being overproduced, almost too professional, too studio, too radio-like.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with having a professional sounding show where it's great and your music comes in and it's well produced. But, when you know that the person behind the mic is just sitting there reading a script or
has a team, and they have a team.
I would love to have a team.
Oh, me too.
But there is a difference. And I think it's, I think the podcasters like you, like myself, it's still a little underground radio-ish for us versus the big guys radio. And I agree, Alyssa. People listen to what they want to listen to when they want.
Yeah. And, the people who have established followings like the Tim Ferriss and, like I said, the Myleik Teals, these are people that they're cross-pollinating their business into their podcast. And then they're cross-pollinating to another genre. Like Tim Ferriss is doing like the cooking thing, the fitness thing.
Right.
So, we're not there yet, but I love him to death. God knows the 4-week work week is my Bible, or was my Bible when I first got
started. I think mine is a right turn right here.
Yeah, mine's a left turn right over there. Chris Gillibo, I'm surprised he never came out with one because they were neck and neck with each other.
It's coming.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to break into this thing.
Yeah.
The 4-Hour Body.
Yeah.
I think this one might be signed. I don't recall. Yeah, it is actually. I don't even remember when I met Tim Ferriss, but apparently it's signed.
But you said something earlier about like people, like Alyssa said, people are going to hear what they want when they want. Yep. And I realize with my fans, they want real and raw. They want edgy. They want to hear the controversy, the drama. And I call it the 50 Shades of Cray Cray on my show. I don't know what it is. It's like anytime I try to be down to earth and reflective, they don't want to hear that.
No.
So
there's a space for it.
There is. But my point to the world is, pay attention to what your listeners are listening to. And by that, I mean, I look at my stats, I see what episodes have the most downloads. So I try to do a variation of those episodes or a sequel or just something that I know that they would enjoy. Now, are you one of those people? Okay, this is my fault. I'll admit, this is my confessional. I'm not one of those people who have an editorial calendar.
No,
right?
No.
I don't have stuff planned out because I'm not that type of person. Because when I'm a creative, if I get an idea, I'm going to go with it. And I'm going to work my way backwards.
I do and I don't. It's bad. It's a really bad habit, actually. I need to have an editorial calendar. I do that for my clients, especially people that are, trying to produce content on a regular basis. They have to have an editorial calendar, but I'm really bad about it.
Right.
I'm supposed to publish once a week, but when stuff happens.
So,
and, like you're not always.
You'll go a week without, like, how long do you go without publishing then?
Oh my God. This last stint has been the longest I've ever gone. I don't know when the last time I actually published an episode.
Oh my God. I feel like that's a cardinal sin. How can you do that?
I know. As a matter of fact, I skipped the entire month of September.
Oh.
Yep. A lot of people call it pod fade, but it's not pod fade. So there was reasons and situations and reasons and stuff that happened. There was a hacking. I survived the hacking.
Okay.
I
know. And then you're on travel. And let's talk about that a little bit because it's also important to meet other podcasts because you and we got to tell this story because this is the power of social media, people. Brennan and I met on, we were Snapchat buddies.
Right.
Never met him. Then when I get to podcast moving in Chicago this year, come down the escalator, he comes in the lobby and we're like, I know you.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy, but that's what I love. It's because, some of these folks I talk to more than my own friends.
Right.
To be honest here. But that's what I love. We share a bond of podcasting and friendship. And you and I are accountability partners too,
We are on via
right?
Snapchat most of the time.
I know, right, which I love. Um,
That's awesome.
but tell us how you leverage conferences and meeting other podcasters. And a good example is the latest conference you went to, which I would never have thought, and people, it's something to think about, is
Yeah.
FinCon.
Best conference ever. So when I started the podcast, the reason that I wanted to start, like I said, was to establish more authority. I wanted to get some speaking gigs, more speaking gigs. I didn't have a book yet. I figured I could use a podcast to leverage that to get material for a book. So I'm like, okay, I'll do this podcast thing for a few episodes, see how it goes, get to meet some influencers, because there is a magic to having a show versus just requesting to meet someone for coffee or for lunch or to try to get them on the phone, because what are you going to talk about if you don't have a reason or a platform to highlight this person's, achievements and what it is that they do. So going to conferences, and the reason that I started going was actually FinCon. FinCon was the first conference I had been to outside of New Media Expo, which used to be is it Blog World? I went once in South by Southwest, which I didn't really count. But FinCon was the first one that I went to, and I went as a media partner because I wanted to go for free. I didn't want to pay for the conference. I was like, ooh, tickets are $500, not paying for that. And how do I guarantee that I can actually meet these people? Well, as a media partner, you can say, hey, I need to interview this person, this person, this person, and this person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just started listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast. I heard something about it from Andrew Warner, actually, on Mixergy. I'm like, you know what? Just start listening to that. Just start listening to The Eventual Millionaire. Have been listening to Derek Halpern's podcast. And all three of them were going to be in St. Louis. And so I was like, oh, I got to figure out a way to get in here and meet these people. So I became a media partner for FinCon. Approached the organizer, got to know him through that relationship. And because of that, I was able to get an interview with Pat Flynn, Jamie Tardy, not Derek Halperin, but several other people. Gene Chatsky was in from the Today Show. And so I got to meet, I met Patrice Washington.
Is that something you could do even today?
Oh, yeah. Oh, by all means. Because even just going to FinCon, this past, last week, I can hardly believe it's already been a whole week, but there were people there like Patrice, who is now on the Steve Harvey Morning Show. She's in Cosmopolitan magazine. She just had an article published in Cosmopolitan. She's on Steve Harvey's show. There's other people there that are starting to, get more media exposure as well. Plus there's people there that, write for big publications and stuff like that. So at any conference you go to, the keynoters, the people that are doing the breakout sessions, all of those people are accessible because they're there at the conference. And if they're staying, and if they're, being part of the conference and, moving around, you just go up to them and talk to them. It's like, hey, I've been a fan for a long time. Would love to have you on my podcast. It's about this. Try to get in a conversation with them, stuff like that.
What's the steps to signing up as a media partner?
So because I have a public relations company and I was doing public relations and social media stuff, I use some of the background work that I had been doing already. So I'm a member of the Social Media Club of St. Louis. I was a board member and running that. I had friends that were in the area that owned a wine bar. So I presented a package to the organizer saying, hey, we would love to throw you guys a happy hour to welcome you to St. Louis, since you guys have come to St. Louis with this conference. It's a 5-minute, maybe a 10-minute walk at best from the hotel that you guys are at. First drinks on us. We're going to do food. Just come in. It's open to whoever wants to come for your conference. And what I'm going to do is come in, I'm going to write, take pictures, and blow it up on the St. Louis scene and try to get some more people from St. Louis, maybe for some last minute registrations or something like that, or just to let people know about it. And they were like, yeah, come on in. And so I did. And I just made sure to attend as many sessions as I could, let the organizers see that I didn't just come in and then bounce out.
After food and drinks, right? Eat and run.
Get the stuff that I wanted to get and leave. I made sure that I became a part of the community and talked to and met as many people as I possibly could.
So that's an idea.
Yeah.
That's an idea for podcasters to kind of swing that way. So we have 3 minutes left in this segment. So if we had to like give our 3-minute takeaways between the two of us.
Talk to as many people as you possibly can. You have access to anyone that you want as long as it's relevant for your show. So think, how can I best deliver to my audience 100% of the time? Be selfish. Think about the things that you want to learn and what's important to you, because it's more than likely going to be important to your audience, because you're usually going to attract people that are like you. So think about what you want to learn, what you want to do.
And Alyssa says, meet people, meet people, meet people. And I could not agree more, because that just opens the door. There are so many groups on Facebook, She Podcasts, Podcast Movement, and there's another one I can't think of. But if you find one of us, you will find us in another one. So you just got to kind of follow us. I'm actually doing something like part of my giving back. I'm doing a mentorship to minority women in podcasting and helping them stand up their podcasts. So I'm doing this mentorship for an hour starting next month, which is tomorrow. And I'm starting out small, just 3 women. So if there's anybody out there who's interested, DM me, tweet me, whatever the case is. And, this is going to be a weekend thing where we're just going to do Q&A and help you get up and running. Subscribing now. Cool, Alyssa. What else? So for me, I would say figure out your exit strategy, right? What is the big picture of your podcast? Are you doing it because it's just a hobby? Are you doing it to make money? And if you're doing it to make money, how are you going to do that?
Oh, we didn't even get into that.
I know. That's another hour that we don't have.
Right.
We have 1 minute left.
Right. I'll give you something to make money with your podcast. Think about this. Think about if you are an expert at the equipment part and the recording part, think about doing niche podcasts for universities, businesses, stuff like that. They need the information out there. They want to get it out there, but they don't want the big commitment. Do 5 episodes with a local business. Say, hey, we're going to do 5 episodes about, the best things for back care, the best 5 things for back care for a chiropractor. We're going to put it up on iTunes. It's going to be evergreen information for your stuff, and you're good to go.
I like that.
Yeah.
Daniel says Acast. They say they help podcasters make money. I've heard
of them. I haven't looked into it.
I haven't looked into them either. So is that for middle of the road podcasts or any, Danielle, like, is it any size, or do you have to have a certain amount of downloads? She doesn't know the details. Okay. Well, it's something for everybody to look into anyway, right? To compete with the big boys. So we're approaching 5 minutes to the hour. Like Dave, do we keep going? Because my battery is going to die soon, but not now. Dave, there you are.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Yeah, your battery's dying. Yeah, we had Dave Jackson on yesterday evening, and he had to stop his broadcast. He had to go plug in his laptop to make sure the battery didn't die.
Right.
So,
well, I have 10%, so I'm good.
Oh, so you're good. Hey, thank you guys so much for joining Happy Hour. We really appreciate it, representing your podcast and everything that you guys are doing in the space. Really enjoyed the session. The replay should be available probably tomorrow or Sunday, so I'll make sure everybody knows where they can get it, we'll have it up on YouTube. You guys can use it. So yeah, excellent job. Really appreciate you guys participating in International Podcast Day 2016. Loved having you guys on.
Thanks to Chris.
I appreciate you guys starting it, on September 30th on my birthday. That's, way to celebrate.
I'll always
celebrate.
Remember. All right. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of the podcast day. Thanks a lot.
I will.
All right.
Ready for Daniel.